Shalom Israel. Before I start, I want to give all glory, honor and praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Mahara Kakadash, doubling us to the elders and apostles in Israel, the real and teacher, to the Akim on the highways and byways, and those pushing this word in truth, sincerity, to the brothers and sisters in the truth. You know what? Just quickly do something. So like, yeah, I probably did this before. It just came into my mind. Yeah. It's like, yeah. No, I'll continue without it. Yeah, what I want to do is play a few videos. You see the title, Cbdc, the chip shop, the Motb, and there's a few major prophecies to come. You know, you got Jacob's trouble, which we speak on. You got World War III, which we speak on. And you got the Motb, which we speak on. There's not many people really speaking on the Motb. You have brothers them from GMS and other such brothers that may follow that teaching, like we. But then others are talking about the Motb being sin. You know, if you believe in the image of Caesar Borgia, that is you accepting the Motb. And to be honest, I used to believe in that image. You know, that's what I was taught, that's what I grew up on, and many people do. But the scripture lets you know, if you do accept the mark, then there's no turning back. So if that is the actual mark, then, you know, we're in problems, really. Majority of us are in problems using this truth, because a lot of us grew up with Christianity, or the understanding where it gives. So what I want to show is actually, you know, a lesson on the Cbdc, which this is all part of the foundation being laid for the Motb, you know, the chip shop, which if you take that, then that will be you accepting that mark. And, you know, you going to the chip shop, what that will do is give you access to all the other areas in life that's going to give Esau control over your life. Yeah, so I just want to show these videos. Actually, before I do that, this is Ezekiel chapter 3 and verse 17. It says, Son of man, I have made thee a watchman unto the house of Israel. Therefore hear the word at my mouth, and give them warning from me. So like, yeah, so that's all we're doing at the end of the day, giving our people warning. You know, how you acknowledge that warning is down to you. Like I said, the foundation is being laid. Various things Esau is putting in place. You've got the Internet of Things, smart cities, brain computer chip implants, so on and so forth. There's various brothers that are doing lessons on this. You know, someone who I like to refer brothers to, because the brother is very astute on this, does a lot of good lessons on it, is GMS Fear the Most High 7 Bar, I think his channel is. Yeah, you check out that Elders lesson channel, and he's done numerous lessons on various foundational work that is being put in place for the Motb, and leading up to you actually taking that mark, which is you going to the chip shop. I want to play a few videos, and hopefully you find the lesson on these videos edifying. This is the first one. So why central banks want to launch digital currencies, and it's quite a few banks that's looking to go into launching digital currencies. Like, just do your own little research. Don't take nothing that I say. You know, do your own research and look into these things yourself. You know, yeah, the scripture says, study to show yourself approved to the Most High. So, you know, we're working on our salvation. That's what we're working on, our salvation. And you don't want to be lackadaisy in working on your salvation. You know, when you read Psalm 64, it says they do a diligent search. You know, talking about the wicked, they do a diligent search to keep us in sin, to trap us. So in like manner, you have to do a diligent search to make sure you stay out of that trap. Yeah, so I want to play this video. It says, why central banks want to launch digital currencies. Yeah, this is from CNBC, Caucasian News Broadcast Channel International. That's my own little joke there. Yeah, check this out.
In 1694, the Bank of England became the first public bank to regularly issue banknotes as an alternative to coins as a means of payment. 3 centuries later, it's primarily tasked with maintaining price stability, much like any other central bank across the world. But these cautious institutions are now buzzing with talk of a revolutionary concept, a form of money you cannot see: central bank digital currencies.
When you ask central banks around the world whether they are exploring CBDC, 1 year ago the answer was 80% of them were exploring, and now it's nearly 90%.
You see, so the number of banks that's looking into this is actually increasing, and ultimately there's a video I played previously, a cartoonish type video, but where it shows you what happens now is that they have more control over you as an individual, what you can buy, etc. Like with your standard banks today, you know, if you go out on the road and you pay cash, you're just lost in the ether. No one knows who spent what you bought, etc. Now, if you use your bank card, your bank will know, yeah, because obviously that's going through via your bank. But when everything goes to that central bank now, they know what you buy, where, when, at the time, you know, and in time it can be restricted to what you can buy, where you can buy.
Here, 40% were experimenting, and now it's 60%. The vast majority of central banks are exploring CBDC.
The idea of digital money is not new. Many of us use debit and credit cards or payment apps for transactions. But what would make a central bank digital currency different? One of the big financial developments over the last few years has been the rising popularity of cryptocurrencies, with one in particular, Bitcoin, standing out. Following Tesla's announcement that it bought $1.5 billion worth of Bitcoin in February 2021, the volatile cryptocurrency's price surged to new highs, giving it a theoretical market capitalization that is even larger than the world's 2 largest payments processing companies, Visa and MasterCard. Unlike traditional money, cryptocurrencies are not issued by a central bank, but rather via a decentralized network of computers, typically using blockchain technology. Even Facebook is trying to get in on the act, with the 2019 announcement that it would develop its own digital currency, known at the time as Libra, and now rebadged as Diem.
And so at that point, central bankers started to realize that they were really under some threat. And the question became, if we can't beat them, do we join them?
Investors in Bitcoin believe that because there is a theoretical cap on the number of Bitcoins that can ever be mined, the cryptocurrency will become increasingly valuable at a time when central banks have been printing.
And personally speaking, this Bitcoin thing, that's also really to get people used to using these digital currencies. You know, that's what they do. They put things out there, let you get used to it, and then, you know, before you know it, it's the way of life.
More money than ever before to arrest the economic fallout from the pandemic. That's why people sometimes...
Like even over in the UK, you can't even get on the bus anymore with cash. You either have to have what's known as an Oyster card, where you put money onto it and use that to get on the bus, or now you can use your bank card. You know, my bank card ain't one of those with a chip on it, so I can't swipe it to do nothing.
It's called Bitcoin digital gold. Many central banks are worried that the widespread adoption of these independent cryptocurrencies could weaken their control over the financial system. This could cause financial instability, especially because cryptocurrencies do not have the legal or the regulatory safeguards that central bank money does. So why not issue a digital currency of their own? Currently, regular bank deposits, cash, and cryptocurrencies issued by the private sector, such as Diem and Bitcoin, all have a few features that make them useful, but the hope is that publicly available CBDCs would have all these desirable characteristics. Unlike your savings in a commercial bank, which rely on the bank's promise to fulfill, CBDCs are recognized by law and backed by the power of the central bank, which cannot go bankrupt. For example, if a commercial bank collapses, part of your savings could potentially be wiped out. But this wouldn't be the case for CBDCs, which could be as trusted as cash, as convenient as a payment app, yet also benefit from the same blockchain technology which underpins cryptocurrencies.
All that sounds good, innit? Which is what they always do, is sell these things off as something that's good. You know, a good example of, you know, them selling us something that's good over here. In the UK, we have what's known as a congestion charge zone, which is a certain area in London where if you drive into that zone, you have to pay a charge because they're talking about, you know, trying to cut down on emissions. Now, when it first started, and they said, oh, it's only £2.50 a day if you drive into the zone. £2.50 sounds good. Then about 5 years down the line, when they did the first increase, they increased it by 100%. Went up from £2.50 to £5 a day. And it used to be from, I think, Monday to Friday, you know, between a certain time, I think 6 a.m. to about 7 in the evening. Weekends were free. After the lockdowns, it's now 7 days a week. I think they might have restricted it a bit on the Sundays, so it locks off early on the Sundays. But I think it's, how much is congestion charge? Give me a second. What is congestion charge? Give me a second. Right. Oh, the congestion charge is now £15 a day per vehicle. It says if you pay in advance or on the same day, it costs £17.50 if you pay by midnight of the third day after you travel. Yeah, remember this thing started off at £2.50 and they were saying, oh, you know, it's very cheap, it's there, it's a good thing to help limit emissions. And Kuya now, same thing with this, they're giving you all the so-called benefits for it, but obviously there's that underlying reasoning for them doing all of this.
And just like cash, CBDCs could be distributed through commercial banks, avoiding too much disruption to the financial system, or the central bank having to deal directly with many millions of citizens and businesses.
Think of banknotes, which are the closest equivalent to central bank digital currencies that we have today, except that they're on paper, of course. This is money that is issued by the central bank and used daily in retail payments. The central bank sells banknotes to commercial banks, and then the commercial banks distribute banknotes through ATMs to their clients.
This means that everyone could have access to this digital currency, which could bring a lot of benefits.
Yippee.
It could make payments faster, allowing for immediate settlement and no processing delays, and it could also make payments cheaper. In the US, the aggregate cost of making retail payments ranges from 0.5% to 0.9% of GDP. Digital currencies would reduce those costs. It also means that more people could have access to electronic payments. Currently, over 1.5 billion adults across the globe don't have access to the financial system, and even in an advanced economy such as the US, more than 6% of Americans don't have a bank account. Issuing digital currencies could also make it easier for governments to deliver stimulus checks, or even go one step further and make targeted payments to those deemed most in need. So how soon could central bank digital currencies become a reality? China is the major economy which is most advanced in its CBDC development. The People's Bank of China has been running tests of its digital currencies since April 2020.
Yeah, so next video, because they're talking about China, is what I want to look at. You know, China ran a test on this during the Olympic that they had, the Winter Olympic. So we're going to show a video on, and listen, check out this video's title. It says China is setting up the world for the mark of the beast, the Motb, and this is the 700 Club. These ain't even people that's in the truth, but you find out there's certain people that's in the truth that's still having difficulty recognizing what we're saying, understanding what we're saying. You know, I was gonna bring this out after, but I'll bring this out now. This is Matthew. Well, it was Matthew. Every time. Matthew Tilake is, I don't know what's going on here. Try and get it back again. Yeah, Matthew 13:16 says, "But blessed are your eyes, for they see." Like I said, there's brothers in the truth that can't grasp or see, I should say, that the MOTB is actually that you go into the chip shop getting yourself some chips. It says, "And your ears, for they hear." Yeah, it's that simple, man. It's that simple. And like I said, the chip, what that will do is give you access to all of these things. But I'm going to show some videos anyway. I want to go back to this one about China, so you can see how they use the CBDC during the Olympics.
China is pushing ahead into a cashless society. It's creating a new digital currency to replace paper money and coins. It will also give the Communist Party total knowledge of how the Chinese people...
And it says a cashless society. So if you've got no cash, everything's digital, how are you going to access it? Obviously, you might be able to access it via your phone. They might have a card, but ultimately they will give you that chip in your hand. And when you look at Sweden's quite big on it. It's nothing new. It's just that it's not as widespread as it will be at some point in the near future.
Spending their money. And China is pushing ahead into a cashless society. It's creating a new digital currency to replace paper money and coins. It will also give the Communist Party total knowledge of how the Chinese people are spending their money. And that opens the door for unprecedented government control.
You hear that? Control, because that's what it boils down to, ultimately, control. Yeah? Everybody being servants to these top elites.
George Thomas has the story.
The Chinese were the first in the world to invent paper money back in the 7th century. Now, more than 1400 years later, China is again on the cusp of creating a new form of government currency that some say could pose a serious economic threat to America and the West.
China is about to launch one of the most revolutionary financial projects in the world.
They're not cryptocurrencies.
And that's also one of the reasons why China is doing this. Because America likes to put embargoes and restrictions on countries. Because the currency of trade is US dollars. So now if you're not trading in US dollars, you've got your own money to trade in. It kind of restricts what kind of restrictions they can put on you. You can still do trading with other countries because you're not using the US dollar, and that also then diminishes some of the grip that America has on other nations, because if you have to buy in my money, I can say, well, we're not trading with you.
They're not so-called stable coins. In effect, they are the national physical currency of a country, just represented in a digital form.
Eric Bethel is the former U.S. Executive Director of the World Bank.
Bitcoin near record highs, crossing 23,000.
He says while the world fixates on private cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin,
But the digital yuan isn't a payment system, it's actual money.
Beijing is busy building a digital version of its own currency, the yuan, also known as the renminbi, to control its citizens and eventually threaten the dominance of the US dollar.
They pretty much created...
And you keep hearing that word, control. That's what it boils down to ultimately.
all of the building blocks that will allow a central bank digital currency to flourish.
And Yahya Fanusi, a former economic and counterterrorism analyst in the CIA, says China's goal is to replace cash with a digital currency that's controlled by the communist government's central bank.
China has said for a while that it expects to pretty much be a cashless society in the future. So the idea is that cash notes, coins will no longer be around, and that people will be using digital currency that's going to be in their wallets,
That digital currency will also be issued by the government bank, allowing what Congressman Michael McCall, the top Republican on the House Foreign Affairs Committee, says is unprecedented access to people's financial transactions.
This will give them data on behavior, on how they spend.
And giving Beijing the power to track that spending in real time.
There will be a point where the People's Bank of China is going to be able to peer inside of every single transaction that everyone does 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Which means if you are a human rights activist or a Christian, authorities can now use this new technology to punish you if you engage in activities they consider anti-government.
This technological ability is something that the government has never had before. It always had to go to companies to say, okay, cut off this person. Now, the Chinese government, I think, with sort of the proverbial flip of a switch, can make people fall in line by cutting off their access to money.
Eventually, U.S. and other foreign companies doing business in China will be required to use the government's...
Meaning you won't be able to do what? They cut off your means to use your digital money. That means you can't buy, you can't sell nothing.
Digital currency payment system.
There's a competitive issue. There are, I'd say, there's cybersecurity issues, privacy issues. You're handing over your data to the Chinese Communist Party by participating in this digital currency system.
The U.S. dollar is the world's dominant reserve currency. China's renminbi is number 8. Beijing's ambition is to eventually supplant the dollar's global dominance with the digital yuan.
The big concern is internationally, especially for the U.S., is in the long term, this is an important step. This is what I would call a fintech, a financial technology development. And the issue is that China is thinking decades in advance. It's not thinking about the next 2 to 3 years, per se.
In June, the communist government handed out more than $6 million worth of its digital currency to its citizens.
And we're talking about China, but you have to think that at the top of the chain, even above the Chinese government are, those who we deem the elite. And all of this is just working into their plans,
As part of a series of trials around the country. The first kicked off in Beijing, allowing residents there to use 2 government bank apps to test digital payments. China then plans to make its big digital currency splash at the 2022 Beijing Winter Olympics.
Which they did.
Now that the world's largest authoritarian regime has launched this first-of-a-kind sovereign digital currency, some in the U.S., like Congressman Mike Waltz, worry Beijing will use this form of payment to also skirt economic sanctions.
The Chinese government can...
You see, that's what I was saying. Now, if they're setting up their own change, and they're not using your money to buy or sell, then you're finding a route around the sanctions that they make. But ultimately, this is all the Lord's doing, man, if you can see it.
There's countries like Burma, Iran, North Korea.
Because, as we started off with, it's not just the Bank of China that's looking to set up a CBDC. Various countries. Let me see something. I'll do it on this screen.
And others, business.
Okay. Do it on this screen. Money banks are looking to adopt the CBDC. It says here, how many central banks are looking at CBDC? How many countries are considering central bank digital currencies? More than 100 countries are exploring CBDCs according to the Atlantic Council Central Bank Digital Currency Tracker, an interactive map tool. What are central bank digital currencies? Let me see if I can get some information here. Australia's central bank is trialing digital currency to explore innovative ways for homeless and businesses to make payments. For homes, businesses to make payments and transfer funds. More than 100 countries, including 19 G20 nations, and are exploring central bank digital currencies. Says CBDCs could improve financial inclusion, say expert, but cybersecurity threats and theft are potential pitfalls. Money isn't paper and coins anymore. Alright, let's get back to this. Soon finish on this one.
In that Chinese digital currency, it will also allow China and those countries to work around one of our most powerful tools, which is sanctions.
Based on history, Waltz believes China is only too happy to share the technology with other rogue regimes that seek to enhance their own surveillance capabilities over their citizens.
If I'm not mistaken, and I'll stand to be corrected, I'm sure Gaddafi wanted the African countries to trade in their own currency, and what's his name there? Mr. Hussein Saddam. And look what happened to them.
Those other countries in Africa, the Middle East, and elsewhere can dominate their people in line with the Chinese version of government. But that data then comes back to Beijing so that they will literally, through facial recognition, be able to monitor the globe.
And going into the smart cities, etc., which China is quite big on. Control.
If you're using...
What the hell is this? Anyway, that's enough of that. Now, this one says, what would you implant a debit card chip in your hand? This is News Nation. So like I was saying, the chip, what that would do is allow you to have access to everything else, because everything won't be on the chip itself, but it gives you access to various things.
Welcome back. When was the last time you wrote an actual check or bought something with cash? Swiping and tapping our cards and our apps are not just the easiest way to spend money, they're the safest way, unless, of course, we misplace our phones or our wallets, and then it's a nightmare. It is hard to misplace your hands, however.
And what it said, could your next purchase be with the wave of your hand? Ooh.
And soon your hand may be all that you need to buy anything that you can afford and many things that you can't. Because a company called Motb is developing a very teeny tiny chip. You see it there in the x-ray?
And this is when? 6 months ago.
That should creep you out. The chip is like the ones that are found in smart credit cards or debit cards. And the chip gets embedded just under your skin and makes your whole hand a credit card.
Wow!
Joining me now is Wojtek Perota. He's the CEO and founder of...
That's going to bring another crime. When you look at them, actually there's a film with Justin Timberlake where it's all about the amount of time you had. There was a countdown time on your hand. When it reaches 0, you're dead. You could give people more time. Now with this, because people is trying to steal time, with this now, the new criminal activity that will be coming in, they got what's that? A new King Leopard type style crime where you find a lot of people with their hands missing, and then next thing you know, money's missing out their account. I don't know how they do it. I'm not interested, but it's just a thought that come into my head.
Wallet more. Okay, Wojtek, this is so futuristic and out there, but walk me through how it actually works.
Okay, so first of all, thanks for having me. Let's look at the chip as a super small part that you can use wherever contactless payments are accepted. So it's exactly the same NFC technology, which stands for near field communication, and therefore it can be used only for the near field communication payments. So therefore you cannot be tracked, you cannot be monitored, you cannot be spied with that implant, because it's exactly the same technology as credit card.
So here's my worry. Is that you can accidentally buy something by just having your hand too close to a machine, or you could accidentally have your data all stolen by shaking someone's hand, because a lot of times we protect our cards in cases that can't be penetrated, but if it's in your hand, it's really hard to do that.
It's not that simple, to be honest. First of all, you cannot lose money when you are shaking hands with anyone, because the implant is the passive type and it doesn't have any internal source of energy, and therefore the only option to get the read of that implant is to put it in your terminal. So therefore the other implant, which is inside of the other person's hand, is not capable.
And when you look into it, you find out these things are actually programmable, so they can program it to what you can buy, where you can buy it, how much you can buy. Another form of rationing.
Of processing information. You need to have that source of energy.
And in war, what normally happens in war? There's normally rationing, man. They had rationing cards before. You got these things in your hand. It's easy to ration so that you can't buy more than your recommended amount.
Terminals that you can see at the moment are capable of providing that energy. So that's one thing. The other thing is that you definitely cannot lose your money because of the fact that you tap in a random place. Why? Because the implant is so small.
You can say you can't lose your hand, and you probably thought about it. If someone chop off your hand, you're just missing.
Compared to the credit card. Normally, of course, when you tap the credit card, the terminal, it gets the read instantly. With the implant, it's a little bit different because you need to be super precise. And therefore, if someone is touching your hand, finding this perfect sweet spot, because that's how we need to look at it, you would realize at least 10 times that something is going on with your hand. So that's
do
also...
Do you have it? Wojciech, do you have it in your hand right now?
Yeah, of course. Actually, the X-ray that you saw was from my hand, and that's how it is. On my hand.
So show me.
So he's done anyway, even though you could tell it's easy, so he's done.
Show me your hand. Is it possible to see it at all? It's just barely standing out, right? Like it looks like maybe a little like a scar?
Yeah, as you can see, I'm popping it a little bit.
Oh man, that's crazy. Did you have a doctor insert?
Yeah, of course.
Actually, I'm sure there's something I want to show on. Let's look here. One second.
Are you sick of having issues with your webinars, wasting tons of time on troubleshooting with attendees? If so, from StreamYard.
North Korea and others to do business in that Chinese digital
Coming back
currency.
to this video here before I continue with the China setting up the world for the mark of the beast. Now watch this. I think I'll play it from here.
Can dominate their people in line with the Chinese version of government, but that data then comes back to Beijing so that they will literally, through facial recognition, be able to monitor the...
George Thomas, CBN News.
Well, if you've ever wondered about some passages in the Bible, how can a government restrict the population so that you cannot buy or sell unless you have a particular mark? Well, this is the answer.
This is why I'm laughing. Remember we started off, one of the verses we read before is, blessed are your eyes for they see, you know, and these are people that's not in the truth, but, you know, there's people that's not in the truth that can see what the mark of the beast is, just as well as there's people in the truth that can't see it, you know. But we're going to teach it anyway for those who can grasp it, man. And
that's part of it.
Pray that those in the truth that can't see it now will see it before it's too late.
the deal, because we are only building the implants, and when it comes to the installations, we want the whole experience.
It says payment systems under your skin too futuristic. Watch this. What have I used? I'll come here. See if it's too futuristic. Microchip in Sweden. 3 years. Sweden sees microchip implant revolution. 3 years. Why human microchip is so popular in Sweden. ID wallet keys all in your hand. Sweden moves into the future with microchipping. So it's quite big over there. So it's nothing new. Like this is something that's actually been tested. Microchip implants in Sweden. Chip under our skin. Yeah. So it's not as if it's, oh wow, that could never happen. It's already happening, man.
To be as safe as possible, and therefore we built a network of partners all across Europe and the US. So therefore,
that's enough of that one. And one more, and a few precepts, and close out. It's like it says this video 8 months. Forgot your phones and cards? Don't worry about it. Pay with your microchip. Nice and simple. You'll never forget your payment card again.
Have you ever experienced shopping but you have forgotten your wallet? Or perhaps your digital apps are not working? That seems like a nightmare. But what if you can pay using your hand? Motb is a UK-based fintech firm that successfully tested and deployed a rather unique payment system. It uses NFC or near-field communication-based microchip implants that get embedded in your hand. NFC is the contactless payment system used in smartphones.
Another reason why we look forward to the kingdom, man. None of these blasted pain, sinus problems. It's annoying.
NFC is the contactless payment system used in smartphones. The basic premise of the implant is that when it comes in contact with a specific reader, the reader then sends out an input, usually in the form of a request. The NFC chip reads and processes it, then sends out a response, usually in the form of output. Just like using a Metro card or tokens, you can now pay for shopping using the chip in your hand. To allay fears of security and privacy, Motb's NFC chips only become active when they are within the electromagnetic field of a specific kind of a reader. Because the area of such a field is very small, they lie dormant unless they are in use. Motb has also addressed concerns on medical ethics. It explains on their YouTube channel that the implant is shipped in a sterilization pouch sealed inside a polymer pouch with an antiseptic and germicide solution. The firm's
I was really worried about that, so now it's okay to get it, yeah?
says it has now sold more than 500 of the chips.
That's that. So, like we read, Matthew 13 and 16 again. Blessed are your eyes for they see, and your ears for they hear. It's for those who can see and understand what we're actually teaching, man. Everyone won't get it. I'll just quote it. Ezekiel 3 and 17. So I should get it again. Read it again. Salakia. Ezekiel chapter 3, 17 again. It says, Son of man, I have made thee a watchman unto the house of Israel. Therefore hear the words at my mouth and give them warning. That's what we're doing, man. Giving you warning. We're blowing that trumpet, man. Telling you what's coming, how it's coming, how they're looking to roll it out, what it is. Last precept, this is Ephesians chapter 4, verse 11. It says, and he gave some apostles and some prophets and some evangelists and some pastors and teachers. Why? For the perfecting of the saints, for the work of the ministry, for the edifying of the body of Mashiach. And that's what we're trying to do, man. Edify the body. We're trying to do our own little due diligence research and pass that information on so that you're as prepared as can be for what's coming. Ultimately, faith is what's needed in this time. Faith in our power, Yahweh, and His Son Yahweh Shai. But at the same time, you need to know what you're looking out for. And this is what we're looking at, for these things to come to pass. But that's it really. Hopefully the lesson was edifying, the videos were edifying for everyone that tuned in. Yeah, shalom. So we're going to close out, going to give all glory, honor and praises to Yahweh, Hashem, Yahweh Shai, Mahar, Bakar Kadash, Kwame Sha'Allah.